Hello, YouTubers, and welcome back to another episode of the Two-Way Constitutionalist podcast. So, we're starting a little bit late, obviously. I was supposed to have some panelists today. At least I thought I was going to, but yeah, didn't happen. It's whatever. Um, the reason I'm late, obviously, is because fucking dog-ass tired. Was taking a nap literally until right around the time the show was really supposed to start today, so yeah, we're gonna be a little bit off for today probably. We'll talk about a couple things that we were gonna discuss and stuff like that. I forget what the one thing was I said this morning in the grandstand, but we are gonna talk about the thing with Delaware, and then we'll obviously talk about other stuff. For those anybody wants to jump on though, I threw a link out in the description there, and then there's also uh, a link in the side chat as well. So, but yeah, if you look in the underbar for this video, there's a direct link to the StreamYard. So if you want to come in here and shoot the shit or whatever, or in the after chat, doesn't really matter either way. We'll be doing both of those things. So anyway, so to start out with this being obviously 2A related news and whatnot. For those that haven't heard, I thought this was pretty interesting. This came out of Delaware a couple of days ago. Obviously, Biden's home state. The Firearms Policy Coalition put out the following tweet. Said, Delaware governor vetoed a bill today that would have made possession of a medical marijuana card not a firearms prohibitor under state law. And of course, that guy's a Democrat. So, yeah, pretty fucked up, man. So essentially what they're saying is, with this, if you have a medical weed card, you no longer have gun rights in the state of Delaware under state law. And the current governor of Delaware, whose name, grab it up real quick now. I want to say this guy's either up for re-election or maybe is out of office at the end of the year. I'm not sure. Yeah, current Delaware governor is John Carney since 2017, so he'd be up for he might have been one of those awful. Actually, yeah, I don't think about it. He probably was one of those guys that got reelected last year, would be my guess. Because it would be like how Louisiana does theirs in an off year. Theirs is going to be 2023 then for their governor race. And if we go by the 4 years, that means that guy would have won in 20. No, actually, that means he would have won in 2020. So it would have been 2020 would have been when he would have won then. So he's halfway through his second term then, if that'd be the case. So yeah, it's not surprising. Not surprising at all that that this fucking guy was like, no, I'm gonna veto this and fuck over everybody is what it is, dude. Even though many people like to get high. And that should not prevent them from running guns is what it is, dude, especially for medical purposes. Oh, Corey's here.
What's going on, man?
Not much. So
How
what's
you
your
doing?
take on the whole medical weed card being prohibitor thing then?
Say that again?
What's your take on the Delaware governor prohibiting people from owning firearms that have medical weed licenses?
It's bullshit, man. I mean, the whole marijuana aspect, I guess I'd take a libertarian stance on it to where, people can do what they, want as far as that it's their body. The whole my body, my choice thing applies to marijuana. I mean, it's a naturally grown crop, basically. When you grow it, there's nothing added to it to enhance the plant, like cocaine. It's the coca leaves and everything, but the stuff that's added to it, as well as crack, makes it different. Whereas weed, when it's grown, I mean, it's naturally occurring. So, I mean, I think people should be able to put whatever they want in their body. Now, if they go out and do something stupid, that's a different story. That's suffering the consequences of your actions, and you should and could be held against or accountable. But just because someone smokes weed, I mean, you can't deny them their constitutionally got, naturalized rights. I mean, when we're born in this country, we're granted these rights the day we're born. So I don't think they should be able to say to someone, just because you smoke a plant, you can't own guns. That's
Well,
bullshit.
the thing is, too, when you start looking into the reason why people get medical weed cards to begin with, a lot of it has to do with either physical issues or, like, it's not even mental health a lot of times. It's actually just physical pain is what they're in.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's been proven, man, that marijuana it's so beneficial for all types of medical conditions. I mean, they have it for like headaches, they have it for pain, they have it to help control like nausea if you're going through chemo. I mean, it's medically proven that there's high beneficial properties of ingesting THC and CBD. So I mean, it's just power and control. That's all it is. They want more control, and they want to be able to tell you what you can and can't do. And when we fight back or stand up for our rights, it pisses them off.
I remember years ago I was watching a documentary. I forget what it was called offhand, but it was basically about like the legalization of weed and stuff like that. And it was this guy who, I forget what his condition was, but he basically had like some kind of crazy issue where his veins or something were like so easily, like they're almost like broke is what it was, and he would like have like bleeding issues then.
Yeah.
And so he was actually getting weed from the government, and it was during Bush 1's administration that they were giving him like this big ass container of weed that they kept giving him all the time is what it was.
Yeah,
And
medicinal.
as soon as he smoked up, he could start driving again. He could start doing anything. Whereas if he didn't have anything in his system, he was totally screwed. He could do nothing. He just sat there.
Yep, and that's like with Texas. And what's up, 500 Magnum? Appreciate you joining the show. But in Texas, I don't remember what year this was. I think it's probably close to 20 years ago, if 15. I can't remember, but there was this case of this little girl named Charlotte, and it was deemed Charlotte's Web.
Yeah, I remember that.
She had seizures constantly to where she couldn't function. She couldn't take care of herself. She couldn't learn anything because she was constantly like seizure after seizure after seizure. And her mom tried everything she could to all kinds of different medicine, doctors, etc. Nothing worked. And then one day, I don't remember how accurate this is, but she basically started blowing pot smoke in her face, which started helping a little bit. So she kept doing that, but she didn't want the highness of it. So she actually went to somebody and had them just, take the THC out and just use the CBD. And she gave her daughter CBD, and eventually she started having less and less seizures, to the point to where now she was able to start learning, going to, I'm not necessarily public school, but, learning with her mom through homeschool, and started functioning more as a human being. And that's how Texas passed the CBD, and it's known as Charlotte's Web. So, I mean, that case right there is provable that this marijuana / CBD, because it's pretty much all the same shit, just how you extract it, is health beneficial. Well, then there's also no government entity should be able to tell you what you can and can't put in your body.
Exactly. And there's also all those derivatives too. Like you got the Delta 8 now and stuff like that, which they're trying to bring forth here in Ohio a bunch of times. But of course, it's considered illegal still, if I'm not mistaken, because it's like too close to the real deal, I guess. But then you also have what was interesting was actually it was this past 420. You had, I forget if it was two Democrats or a Democrat and a Republican coming together and being like, hey, let's pass this weed legalization in the state of Ohio and make some money off this shit finally. And they tried, and it just never got through the General Assembly is what it was.
Yeah, and I know in Texas, Abbott has talked about and wants to legalize it statewide in Texas, But from what I've heard, it's the Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick that's been holding it up.
Well, and it's interesting because then you start looking into a lot of these people and the lobbyists that are behind them, and a lot of them are big pharma.
Yep. Yeah, I know it's money talks and bullshit walks, because the government and big pharma, especially mainly big pharma, wants people to be sick because they make billions and billions of dollars off of us being sick. It's like I said before, I firmly believe they have the cure to every ailment and disease out there, because if they were able to cure people, they would go out of business eventually because people would be cured and not be sick. Like, it's like cancer. There was I can't remember his name. He ended up buying this cancer drug company, and at the time the just one pill was, I want to say, maybe $10 or so, somewhere about there. It was really cheap per pill. But when he bought it, he raised the price to over $700 or so per pill. And then he started going on social media crying like a little baby, saying that he can't get any dates or anything because of his actions. Well, you dumb motherfucker, you're basically killing people because you have skyrocketed the price of this cancer drug to where nobody can afford it, not even with insurance, because you're a greedy piece of.
Yeah, that was that Martin Shkreli dude, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that sounds about right. But I'm like, hey, are you fucking kidding me? And you
I
wonder
actually,
why.
I actually followed quite a bit of that story, and I'm not gonna advocate that the guy wasn't an asshole and everything like that, but I understand from like the point of view that like other people were talking about with it, because supposedly it was I don't believe it was cancer drug, it was a HIV drug, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that.
No, it was cancer. I
Okay,
remember it was a
okay,
cancer drug.
and it was some super rare cancer and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because what they were saying was there was only like I think 300 people that were on it or something like that, and it was costing more for them to actually manufacture it than it was for them to sell it to these people. So it was then. Now, granted, they
No,
could have
I
actually they
understand
should
that
have cut it. They should have upped it a little bit, but not like what he did. That was what it was.
yeah, that's understandable because it was cost beneficial. I get that, but raising it that much per pill is it's in my opinion criminal.
Yeah,
But
it
there is
for sure
a
was.
scenario. I mean, I don't think this is an actual true event, but it was on a show I saw, to where there was this rare condition that very rarely happened to people, and there was a drug that would help them, and it was like $48,000 just for the fucking vial of medication, because he said because it's so rare that it's so expensive to manufacture it, so therefore it has to have a higher cost. And that's similar to what you're saying. So I get that, but raising it to where nobody can afford it, you're basically saying, why don't you just die because you're not worth saving?
Well, and that's the whole point that everybody went after him for, and that's why I think he was charged criminally for a little bit of time, is what it was for that.
Yeah. And I don't know what happened with that case, because I honestly, until now, I forgot about it.
Yeah, I know
So
he went
I
to prison
don't
for a while over it. I just can't remember. I know he's back out of prison now.
really, I didn't even know
Yeah,
he went to prison. So
yeah.
that,
I think
see,
I think a lot of people didn't.
we have our freedoms, and everything, but on the other hand, there are consequences to your actions. You're free to basically do what you want, but you have to suffer the consequences if you break the law. You see what I'm saying?
hmm
So good on that. I'm glad he got held accountable, because it seems like these days a lot of people, especially the rich and powerful, there's no accountability. They're not. They just are getting away with murder, in my opinion. Like with the whole ventilator issue,
Uh-huh.
throwing people on ventilators, in my opinion, too soon. I don't. It's just there's no accountability, and I'm a big proponent of that. It shouldn't matter who you are, what position you hold. If you fuck up and break the law, you're no different than me.
Yeah. Oh, it's interesting bringing up accountability, because that's one of the stories we're going to talk about here in a couple minutes. Actually, probably right now. Um, I don't know if you
What's
heard.
up, Krabby Turtle? I'm sorry, I just now saw that he posted something. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Nancy Pelosi's husband was assaulted this afternoon.
I heard that
Yeah,
someone was
we're
trying
gonna
to tie him up and
talk
told the police
to
that they were waiting for Nancy to show up.
going to this Breitbart story right now.
I saw that and I was like, damn.
Got San Francisco police identify suspect in attack on Paul Pelosi. It said Chief Bill Scott of the San Francisco PD on Friday identified the suspect in the attack on House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband at 42-year-old David DePape. Said approximately 2:27 p.m. or 2:27 a.m. this morning, San Francisco police officers were dispatched to the residence of Speaker Nancy Pelosi regarding a priority well-being check. When the officers arrived on scene, they encountered an adult male and Mrs. Pelosi's husband, Paul. Scott said during a press conference, our officers observed Mr. Pelosi and the suspect both holding a hammer. Suspect pulled a hammer away from Paul and violently assaulted him with it. Our officers immediately tackled the suspect, disarming him, took him into custody, requested emergency backup, and rendered medical aid. Said Scott continued. The identity of the suspect has been identified as 42-year-old David DePape. Mr. Pelosi and Mr. DePape were transported to a local hospital for treatment. This is an active investigation currently being led by San Francisco PD Special Investigation Division. We are working close with our partners at the FBI, U.S. Attorney's Office, U.S. Capitol Police, District Attorney here in San Francisco, Brooke Jennings and her team. Motive for this attack is being determined. The attacker will be booked at the San Francisco jail following charges attempted homicide, assault with a deadly weapon, elder abuse, burglary, and several other additional felonies.
Bam.
Yeah.
I mean, he fucked up and broke the law, so yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's kind of funny because they're gonna throw the book at this dude and bury him beneath the ground, essentially, under the jail cell. But Mr. Pelosi there recently, in my opinion, got away with a major crime, and that's drinking and driving.
Yeah, exactly.
He basically got a slap on the wrist. If that was you or I, it'd been different.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I'm for accountability. I mean, that person did something egregious and broke the law. So, yeah. Right? Krabby Turtle said, let's see what the MSM narrative is on it. Oh, they're going to fucking probably say he was right wing, a Trump supporter. He's a MAGA terrorist, all the fucking flavor words of the day, they're just going to fucking label him as such. It's just, it's like that recent shooting where they were initially saying it was a white guy that, did all the shooting, but it turned out it was actually a black guy. Remember that one?
Louis one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we were going to talk about that actually. I don't know if you had heard, the gun that they had taken from his house, because his mom and sister were like, yeah, this kid's mental, and we don't want this gun in our house, to give it to some relative, and he was able to get it back somehow. That's the gun that was used in that attack.
Really? Was it the same one? Because I saw something earlier, or yesterday, to where there was a cop that sold either his not police issued, but a gun that he, I guess, got from the police station or something, and then sold it to somebody, and it was used in a crime. Is that the same story, or am I mixing two different ones together?
No, I think you're mixing two different ones together, because I heard about something else too, where it was supposedly like some undercover informant or something like that buying like some Glocks or something from some dude.
Yeah, it was some Glocks. I saw that story, but yeah. I don't remember.
Yeah, no, I think it's two different stories together.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that one's pretty nuts. I would say honestly, and this is just my personal opinion on the whole thing, the fact that his family knew that this kid was a danger to himself and others, had him institutionalized several times, and he wasn't still in an institution right now and was able to do this attack, it's kind of bullshit, and it shows the breakdown of our system entirely. And I'm kind of wondering, honestly, if it didn't have to do with the fact that I know with when you put somebody in a insane asylum or whatever there, it usually goes with insurance, and I'm wondering if it was an insurance issue.
I don't know.
Which again does go to the disparity in this country, unfortunately, when it comes to financial stuff.
Mm-hmm. I'm just tired of every people, media or government officials or all of it. When something like this happened, yes, it's sad and horrible, but they automatically jump in with their own narratives before they actually know the facts of the case. Because, like I said, when I first heard about this, it was like 8 dead, and then I don't remember how many wounded. It's just all misinformation, and they were like, "Oh, it was a white guy," and then it was, "Oh no, it was 2 or 3 dead because he killed 2, and he died in a shootout, and there was multiple people shot or injured at least, and now it's a black guy." I mean, I'm just fucking sick of that. You know what
Well,
I
it's
mean?
like the same thing with the Sandy Hook narrative a decade ago, and they were like, "Oh, it's 3 shooters now. It's 2 shooters now. It's 1 shooter in custody and 1 shooter dead. Oh, now it's just a single shooter and he's dead." And that was within a half hour or so. I'm just like,
I know. It's a
that
scare
seems very
tactic.
fucking fishy. It seems very fishy to me.
Yeah, and they can always walk it back and get a slap on the wrist for, quote unquote misinformation, because that's exactly what it is, because they're jumping the gun and not, following the actual story. They're spinning their own narrative, and it riles people up. It gets people scared. Krabby Turtle says, "Dude, the DC sniper is supposed to be a white guy."
Yeah, I was watching something about that the other day because they were discussing how those guys got away with that for so long, and it was crazy. They had like a whole setup in the back of the car and everything like that, and they were shooting out of the trunk.
Really?
Yeah, and apparently the
Krabby says
one,
he lived in the area directly between 2 victims. Damn, that's insane.
yeah, that's some crazy shit right there. Yeah,
But
that
yeah, if
was
they
the one
wanted
thing
to,
though that took it to fear mongering and then some back then. I remember that.
exactly 500. Yeah, he says, we all know, but the average person fails to realize gun control only turns people into victims because criminals don't obey the law. That's why they're criminals, and the law-abiding citizens will not break laws.
Yeah,
And that's what they want. They want the good people, the patriots, defenseless, so they can just easily overthrow us. And that's what all this is about. They want more and more power and control. They don't care about us, not one bit, except when it comes to taking money from us. They're taking our freedoms.
yeah. Which actually brings us up to another topic I was going to talk about, which has to do with something I mentioned this morning actually, which is the current woman that's running for Ohio governor's race, Nan Whaley. That goes back to the gaslighting thing of all these people who are like, the other side's doing this. Meanwhile, we're actually doing this thing. Uh, so she apparently in the last couple of days was down there in Columbus, literally meeting with Moms Demand Action members who are directly funding her campaign.
Really?
Yeah. This was a tweet that she put out here. It said, "Yesterday in Columbus." This is about 12 o'clock this morning. I found this on her Twitter page. She said, "Yesterday in Columbus, I joined local stakeholders and community leaders for a roundtable to discuss common sense gun solutions to gun violence in Ohio. Governor DeWine caved to the gun lobby donors that fund his campaign rather than keep our communities safe. Ohio deserves better." So the gun lobby she's talking about are people like myself who continuously call the state reps and have never donated a dime to DeWine. When we called them up, and this is serious. I've actually, there was a time last year where I spent probably a good 7 weeks of my life on the phone with almost every single state rep and almost every single state senator's aides and been like, hey, when are you guys taking this stuff to committee? When are you taking constitutional carry out of committee? When are you taking it to floor votes? When are you taking it to Senate votes, et cetera, et cetera?
Awesome. Didn't y'all finally get constitutional carry?
We did, and I directly support myself on that one for the reason why it happened.
I tell you, I'm sure she is pissed off that happened. Whaley.
Yeah. Well, here's my thing about, and this is something where I will disagree with NEA on about stuff when he was talking about people running for office and stuff like that. I think there should be disqualifications when you're directly running on a platform that is anti-gun and other anti-constitutional stuff, whether it be anti-life or whatever the case be. It's like, how are you even still in the race when you're directly going to break your oath as soon as you take it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that right there should disqualify you. If you're actively, campaigning to violate, the law of the land, because that's what the Constitution is, how are you even able to run, much less get elected? That should be, of course there's not, but there should be some kind of stipulation,
Mm-hmm. Well, with Nan here, her whole thing, like every single campaign ad she's put out so far, is just, this is why Ohio needs to be a pro-abortion state on demand, basically. And then, of course, she's going and doing the anti-gun stuff, which she talked about that during the primary debates and stuff like that as well, before the primary, about being basically with Bloomberg and company. There's also a sitting sheriff here in Hamilton County, which is the county Cincinnati resides in, named Charmaine McGuffey. And she actually ran using Bloomberg money and won. She was also the only sheriff that was down at the State House during constitutional carry talks to testify against it.
Huh.
And there's a fun fact for him that doesn't know this, actually. The only person that can arrest a sitting sheriff is the county coroner.
Really?
Yeah. I found that out about 2 years ago from the guy I was going to run with as lieutenant governor under me.
How can a county coroner legally arrest a peace officer?
Yeah, I don't get it either. It's like a weird clause or something where they're the only one that has the power to arrest a sitting sheriff. I think it has something to do with like life and death and back in the 1800s or something like that, probably.
Maybe, but geez, I've never heard anything like that. That just,
yeah.
Wow.
I don't think a lot of people know that, actually, and that's the sad part.
Is that just there in Ohio, or is that?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I know he mentioned it as like a thing. I don't know if he was saying it just for the state or if he was saying it as a nationwide thing. So I'd have to look more into that then if that be the case. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. But yeah, if you notice the photos that were, just go and blow this up a little bit. All the photos there, you got MDA red shirts all around that table.
500 Magnum, you're correct on that last statement you made.
Yeah, the woman that's in the middle right there, the white chick with the necklace on, that's Nan Whaley. And then
she looks like a Karen.
Yeah, and I think I'm not sure if the black woman that's next to her holding a sign is actually Cheryl Stevens or not, because that would be her lieutenant governor pick. It might be, but yeah, it's just ridiculous. And the thing is, like, to me, it's just insane anyway, because you're basically proving everybody's point that, like, you're clearly bought and paid for by Bloomberg anti-gunners, dude. Like, that's just proof right there of it. We have photographic proof of this right now.
Yep.
And then sitting there calling it gun violence when it's just violence in general. And it's like, and I'm going to say it like it is, man. When you look at the breakdown of Columbus racially, it's a lot of black and brown people that are doing the crimes down there.
Yeah. The sad thing is, they say they want to curb the violence, the gun violence, and everything like that. But yet you got all these states that are decriminalizing certain violent acts, like second-degree murder. You'll be released, the same day or the next day, without bond or bail. And I mean, it's just, honestly, I feel like they're trying to institute a real live purge to where the criminals can be free to do what they want, but the law-abiding citizens are, quote unquote, the criminals that they want to go after and ruin their lives and take all their rights and freedoms away. The script's getting flipped. Good is bad, bad is good. And if you're in the middle or whatever, you're fucked.
Mm-hmm.
And and honestly, the way shit's going right now, I'm not very confident uh, if we'll even really truly make it to the 2024 elections without some major huge event happening on our turf, not just other countries or whatever. I'm talking about on our home soil. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been saying that for a long time now. I mean, hell, there was a woman who was one of Biden's nominees recently for, I forget exactly what position it was now. Trying to think offhand, like climate czar or something like that, basically. And she had direct ties to the Chinese military.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Kind of like Swalwell sleeping with the fucking
Did Oh my
spy.
god. Did you see the campaign commercial that motherfucker put out? It was on was watching god, who was it now? The Can't Stop the Progress dudes weekly thing, and it was in that.
Uh-uh.
It was so crazy, man. Like it's basically it's a family just chilling, and the dad's like feeding one of the kids or whatever, and then there's a couple cops knocking on the door and being like, "We're here for Mrs. whatever her name is," and they're like, "You illegally had an abortion without getting government consent or whatever it was or something, and now you're being arrested on like felony charges," and then it's like, "Vote Democrat or else Eric Sowell 2022 or something like that." Is how it went. I'm just like, God damn, dude.
Jesus. That reminds me of fucking with the whole Donald Trump and Mar-a-Lago bullshit. It was like right when that started, fucking Hillary Clinton came out with fucking merch, throwing the shit in our faces about having that illegal server in her home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Raiding a family eating. What is that in regards to? He
Oh,
dropped in the link.
that's probably the video for the
Okay.
campaign that I was talking about.
That's like, did you hear coming out of New York how the fucking red flag law shit went up from like maybe around 40 cases a month to like what is it, well over 400 or so. No, I think it was around 2,000 a month or so. The skyrocket because they have to or fill out I can't remember the form to
Mm-hmm.
send off, and nobody knows. Like you could be sitting at home with your family eating dinner, and all of a sudden they'll bust into your house. And you don't even know. You can't even have a lawyer present or anything because they're doing all this criminal activity, in my opinion, behind closed doors to come fuck with you because somebody might have said something.
Well, the thing is too, whenever they were trying to pass that federal one recently, they started changing up the names now because everybody knows what ERPOs and red flag laws are, and it was something else. Now it was like safety protection or something crap like that or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because they keep wanting to change the names so that it's like, oh, it seems better now, and it's like it's still the same shit, man. Like
Yeah.
nothing's changed here. It still does away with due process and about 10 other constitutional amendments. It's just like going back to my own federal swatting and stuff like that. Like I'll admit there was stuff that shouldn't have been said there, but like the fact that they could have called me up and been like, yeah, we know you're not a threat or anything like that. If you just take this down and shit, would be cool or whatever. And no, they fucking came to the house and tried to fuck with me and then admitted after the fact they're like, oh, we wasted 6 days on this as they're leaving, and then gave me anxiety for probably a good 6 months of my life on that one.
And they don't give a shit.
No, they don't. Not to
And are
mention
they
they
going
were
to be held
creeping around my
accountable
house for like
for it?
next 2 weeks or so. At least I think it was them. Was the same kind of creepy blacked out windowed car. So
Yeah. Fucking bullshit.
yeah. But yeah,
500 Magnum says, rest in peace to everyone at Uvalde and my condolences to the families. There's a special place in hell for criminals. Yes, there is. Yep.
yeah.
There was a Texas state trooper that fucked up. I can't remember what she did wrong, but she ended up either quitting or getting fired from the trooper and got hired on at Uvalde PD. Did you hear about that?
No, I had not heard about that.
Yeah, I have to look it back up. I don't remember exactly what she did wrong, but um, I know it wasn't good.
Yeah.
But I still say every fucking Uvalde police officer and whoever was involved with that tragic event, whether it be FBI or whatever federal law enforcement, should all be fired and held accountable for their cowardice.
Yeah, for sure.
Will
So,
it happen? No.
no, of course not. So, going back to the whole Clinton thing for a couple minutes here, it's another
Yeah,
story that
sure.
I saw pop up here. Uh, Chelsea Clinton on Kanye West, Tucker Carlson, and a lot of white men also trafficking dangerous anti Semitism. Like, she really is like a fucking clown, dude. Have you ever seen Webb Hubble?
I don't think so.
He was one of the guys that used to work for the Clintons. And if you look at him and you look at Chelsea Clinton, there ain't no way that that's not his actual biological daughter.
Really?
Yeah, she's actually had like plastic surgery and stuff done on her face several times to make her look less like Webb.
Well, that's like fucking Trudeau and Castro.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Same thing.
his mom was definitely screwing around Castro for sure.
Yeah. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, it's been a thing for a long time. There's also a mixed race kid out there who is a young guy named Danny. I forget what his last name is offhand, but he might be the bastard son of Bill Clinton, actually.
That don't surprise me at all. Wait, actually, I did hear about that. There was someone, uh, might have been that person, but I remember there was I think he was biracial,
Yeah.
half black, half white, that
Mhm.
was coming out saying that he was Clinton's son. Is that the same guy?
Yes, that was
Yeah,
during 2016 election cycle, if I'm not mistaken.
I remember that because it was fucking everywhere, and they did side by side comparisons. And yeah, there was a striking resemblance, but on the other hand, it'd be like, it's kind of questionable. But it would not surprise me. I mean, hell, he fucked Monica Lewinsky and had his dick sucked underneath the Oval Office desk.
Yeah. Well, from Danny's perspective, what he was saying was how Bill and his mother apparently were having like a regular relationship, like consistently for years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Yeah, I just want the DNA proof that this is my real father."
Yep. Krabby Turtle posted a link to the video for
Yeah,
Danny Williams.
Yeah, that's who it is. Yeah, Danny's an interesting character. Interestingly enough, there really hasn't been much about him since then.
I was just fixing to ask, is he still pressing the issue, or did he get silenced?
I don't know. I don't even know if he's still alive at this point, honestly.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I said silence, because that could be interpreted any manner.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they pulled some shit like that, honestly, with him. So,
or at the very least, just paid him off to shut him up.
Yeah, it could be. Or it's like, here's the actual DNA proof. Now shut your mouth.
My question, and it's just curiosity. You know how there's conspiracy theories that the whole Clinton aspect. You know what I'm referring to, right?
Probably.
Clinton getting Clinton.
Oh yeah.
I'm curious to how Monica Lewinsky escaped that, because I'm trying to say it without really saying a whole bunch of you know what I mean, trying to be vague about it.
Yeah.
But do you know what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
She's still kind of around, isn't she?
Yeah, Lewinsky, I think it's because of the fact that with Monica Lewinsky, she said enough things to where had she gone mysteriously Arkansided or whatever, you would have seen a bunch of people be like, well, that's some fishy ass shit. We might investigate this now. And to me, I think that's the only reason she's probably still alive right now.
Maybe. Krabby Turtle says in the Pelosi case, the suspect was arrested in his underwear. Authorities have found an anti-government manifesto.
Yeah, of course they have.
Yeah, of course. I'd be curious to see what it says.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whether he wrote it or if it was wrote with the perception that he wrote it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised in the least if they're like, oh, just sign your name to this thing.
Right.
And you'll go free in like 10 minutes. Yeah, I don't know. It's just, yeah.
So how bad did Mr. Drunken Pelosi got hurt? How I don't know if you actually said how bad he got hurt.
Yeah, I don't know if they said it actually. Let me go check that again. Because I think they said something about him being hospitalized for something. Yeah, here's another article. Hospitalized. Let's see. Yeah, so Speaker Pelosi's husband, Paul Pelosi, was hospitalized Friday after the assailant broke into the home and attacked him. So motive for the assault is not known. Dude remains in custody. Individual broke into the Pelosi home in San Francisco early Friday morning. Speaker was not home at the time. Said spokesman for Pelosi broke the news in a statement for Speaker's office, saying this morning an assailant broke into the Pelosi residence in San Francisco and violently assaulted Mr. Pelosi. Assailant is in custody. Motivation for the attacks under investigation. Paul was taken to the hospital where he is receiving excellent medical care and is expected to make a full recovery. Speaker was not in San Francisco at the time of the attack. Speaker and her family are grateful to the first responders and medical professionals involved and request privacy at this time. White House also issued a statement with Biden condemning violence and asking for privacy for the family. I mean, would it surprise anybody if this was actually just them having themselves attacked right before the midterms?
Yeah, just to fucking, add fuel to the fire.
Exactly. Play the victim card and be like,
Yeah.
oh, but see, all these people are assaulting us now. Actually, there was one I heard on the local news last night where they were talking about like, oh, there's possibility of like threats and intimidation at the polls this year, but there's been no actual evidence of that so far. And I'm just like, so you're gonna make some up then apparently?
Yeah, it's a whole it's Jesse Smollett all over again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Krabby Turtle said he heard Pelosi had a cracked skull. I hadn't heard that, but they could say, oh, he's fine, but actually he's a little worse off because actually, no, I don't, if it was that bad, they'd be like, oh yes, this happened, that happened, this happened to make it, blow out of proportion. So I don't know.
Yeah,
But
it's all
he also dropped a link. I can't access the link on my phone, but he said now FBI wants 66 years before releasing information on Seth Rich info. He said no one's talking about that.
Yeah, I hadn't even heard about that. I don't know if you know the Seth Rich story or not.
Probably.
Okay. Well, so Seth Rich was a dude who, ironically enough, was a Bernie Sanders supporter back in the day. He worked for the DNC right before the 2016 election cycle and was mysteriously found dead in the Capitol with, I don't know if it was 1 or 2 bullets in the back of the head. And they claimed it was a robbery, yet his phone and a wallet full of cash were both still on him.
Right.
And this was after he had dropped all the it was like server data or whatever that basically proved that Hillary and everybody was doing some shady shit then.
Yep, I remember that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So like I said, there's so many fucking stories and so much fucking shit that's been going on the last however many years, just everything gets jumbled together.
Mm-hmm. And
You
then
hear
there was
so many
also
names
another
and
guy,
instances.
Michael. I think his name was Michael something, and he was a investigative reporter who I think was buddies with Seth Rich, and his vehicle that was a Mercedes at the time that was able to be controlled mysteriously went off and had a giant crash. And then the engine was basically found like a mile and a half back from the rest of the car.
Damn.
Yeah. Like it had basically flipped several times. And as they were saying then, they were like, yeah, this could easily be manipulated by, outside forces and be hacked and shit like that. So,
Jesus. I just
yeah.
want to say, Krabby Turtle, that's fucking awesome, man. Congrats. I don't know if you can hear it. I'm giving you a round of applause. He received his DC permit today.
That's cool.
So that's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And 500 Magnum said Justice Thomas has thrown a wrench into the anti-gunners agenda. So we should eventually get our rights back, hopefully. We'll see. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's the one thing when it came to the Bruin decision, Maryland seemed to be one of the ones that caved the quickest, actually. It just happened to be New York and California that were like, no, let's write some more anti gun bullshit in place.
Well, it's like California and New York. They're trying to find ways that they can skirt around the fucking Bruin decision, so they can still unconstitutionally, fuck over our rights. And I hope all these people coming out of Fort Worth, coming out of New York, that are having all these fucking red flag bullshit thrown against them. I hope they're able to fight it, sue, and win, and get all that shit deemed unconstitutional.
Well, this is the only real issue I've ever had with everything there is that, the only reason that we've never seen a red flag case go up to the Supreme Court at this point is because the people don't have money. You'd have to do some kind of a class action to get it there, I think, and just have it be like a crowdfunded kind of deal. Unless you would have like a GOA or an FPC put like their own cash behind it and be like, hey, we're finally going to take this case and we'll throw a bunch of money into it.
Mm-hmm.
Because outside of that, it's going to be very, very tough for people to. That's why you have so many people in Florida right now that are becoming their own lawyers and stuff. Because of course, with red flag gun seizures down there, you can't actually get a public defender, and it's either you defend yourself or you don't have a defense at all, and then you just basically get fucked. Is what it is.
Yep.
And there's been, I think, I know it's at least several dozen, if not several hundred, that have gone down there and been like, no, we're going to represent ourselves then. Like, we need our gun rights back. This is bullshit. Just because I said something doesn't mean I was going to do anything.
And I think it's awesome because I've seen a lot of videos where people are exercising their rights and everything. And I've noticed that is growing, more and more every day, where people are finally starting to educate themselves on our Constitution and on your, God-given rights.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's awesome, and we need more and more of it every fucking day. If we could get, at least 3/4 of the population on the same page, we could change, so much, so much to the where we could actually live our lives more in peace and freely. And I'm just glad to see more and more people are waking up to the government's lies and bullshit and manipulation and fear mongering. I feel it's a little too late. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah,
Maybe.
500 Magnum, you're correct, and I agree. I want everyone to have the right to protect themselves and their families, uh, as well. It's just we need more people to stand up for our rights and defend them.
Well, the thing right now is, we're looking at, obviously, Alabama come January 1st is going to be the 25th constitutional carry state. And
Really?
then, yeah, they were technically, if you actually want to get into legalities of things, technically KIV was 22 and 22, but because of the way that their General Assembly works, it doesn't actually go into effect until the next following year.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I'm trying to think now. Yeah, they signed it in, and then Brian Kemp actually screwed Ohio over for 22 and 22 moniker, which that really pisses me off because if DeWine was an actual constitutionalist governor, he would have signed that on day number 1 and then ran on that platform, and so would everybody else for that matter. And been like, yeah, we helped make Ohio 22 and 22 because we give a shit about the Constitution and people's gun rights.
Well, I think that's awesome. That means we have half the states. Once that happens, we'll have half the states now have constitutional carry. And what does that fucking say? What is that how does that send a message to the government? It's basically saying, fuck you, we have rights and freedoms, and you can just fuck right off.
And that's exactly what it is. And I think, truthfully, and I've talked to people about this before in the last year or so, and I said, okay, so we're going to have 25. What do we get to 30? And how do we get to potentially 38? Because I believe that it's either 37 or 38 is where you can do a convention of states.
Yep. You're right. Yep.
And I think if we can get it to that 30 mark anyway, you would have to have pressure going on the other 20 then for that matter. Because it's like, hey, more than half the country is now constitutional carry. We have a 3/5 majority right now. Like, what's up, man?
If we do make it to the 2024 elections and say if we could take the presidency, the House, and the Senate back, it'd be awesome if they just fucking made it, federally across all 50 states, Constitution carry, and just start taking back and trying to fix all the bullshit that's been fucked up the last few years.
Well, we technically should have had it under Trump for national reciprocity. The only reason it didn't happen was because Paul Ryan was the Speaker of the House at the time and Mitch McConnell was the Senate President. And they both basically, and McConnell specifically, was either told or let it happen and just let it sit on his desk for like almost a year and a half until midterm elections happened. And then, of course, we had that so-called blue wave, which I'm even suspect on that one at this point.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Krabby Turtle's got a question for you. He said, didn't DeWine have the chance to sign CC prior to that? Did he veto it once?
So a couple things happened. We never had here's the thing. Constitutional carry in the state of Ohio, it started out in 1997 when it was first introduced, so it took 25 years to get here. And I've even talked to my state rep about that. I'm like, because he was saying like, oh yeah, I didn't realize until I got into government how slow government works at the state level here. And I'm just like, yeah, because it took us 25 years to get constitutional carry. And he was like, yeah, right. And I'm like, yeah, you guys could have done it like 2 years ago.
Yep.
But anyway, and that's the one thing about Ohio too, when it comes to like Second Amendment issues and stuff like that, is it's almost like they only do like one bill a year because in 2021 it was stand your ground, and then this year it was constitutional carry, and then next year who the hell knows what it was going to be then. But yeah, they so we had somebody, I'm not sure who it was, back in 97 introduce what would have been constitutional carry then. It never get, I think it was introduced legislation, but it never got a committee. It never got anything. It was just set there and left there to do nothing. And then it was throughout every General Assembly since then, you've had like a reintroduction thing, but it's either never gotten committee hearings or it's never gotten, picked up or whatever the case be. It was just submitted legislation. 2004 is when you had a bunch of not county sheriffs, a bunch of ex-cops who became Buckeye Firearms Association. And they were basically the first gun group in this state to fight for rights and stuff like that. Now, granted, they should have been fighting for constitutional carry at that point, but they're like, no, let's get, concealed carry licensing in place here. And that's what led to our concealed carry licensing in 2004. Then it was I'm trying to think now. There's a lot of shady shit that's happened in the past few years now that I'm trying to recall off my top of my head right now. So about I'm trying to think, it was Trump's administration or it was in that Obama administration. There's a guy named Jim Irvine who used to work for Buckeye Firearms who was basically caught doing backdoor lobbying to water down pro-gun legislation. and was doing backdoor stuff with a bunch of rhinos here, like Kyle Kellner and stuff like that. And he eventually got booted out of Buckeye Firearms here. I think it was in 2020 or 2019, one of the two.
I remember hearing about that too.
And basically, that's when they put a stain on themselves by ever allowing that douchebag to be part of them. But they're also kind of a bunch of fuds anyway. Ohio Gun Owners became a thing at that point. That's a Chris Doerr's organization and stuff like that. And then I forget exactly when he started. It was several years back now. Him and his family have a bunch of different ones all over the states, though. And they're very shady as well. Then in 2019, obviously, had Dayton Massacre happen the day after that Texas shooting happened in the Walmart there, El Paso.
Yeah.
And that was within, I think, 13 or 14 hours. Again, autistic mind remembers shit like that. So
no, that's awesome. I mean, that's great.
And then it was, so that would have been a Saturday morning or Saturday night, Sunday morning. And then it would have been that Wednesday is when you had every Democrat in the state of Ohio submit anti-gun legislation, red flag laws, universal background checks, and a magazine ban.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I got into the fight, was after that. And it was, trying to think, that would have been August of 2019. And then it would have been within a week of that, I was federally swatted. And
coincidence? I think not.
It was definitely, there was no way it wasn't over, that whole thing, because they thought I was probably going to be the next one or something like that. Or at least they were like, no, I've got to check this out to make sure he's not going to be the next one and shit. And then it was a whole thing there. But yeah, actually, it was, now I'm thinking about it, it's probably within 4 or 5 days of that massacre, they swatted my ass then. And then, then I really got in the fight after that, is what it was. And it was November of 2019. You had multiple grassroots two organizations pop up. One of them was Ohio Patriot Network, and then there's another one called Ohio Stands United that eventually became like these people were trying to claim that they were for two-way sanctuary and getting it done or whatever the case be. They never did a damn thing to actually help out with two-way sanctuary movement. They end up turning into a giant Joe Jorgensen fuckfest, essentially, for her being the 2020 Libertarian nominee there.
Mm-hmm.
And half the people in that were either Antifa or BLM that were directly threatening most of the membership of the actual 2A groups, is what it was. So yeah, it was a giant shit show. At least one of my friends, their mother was directly threatened by like 4 people in that group.
Jesus.
Because she was pro 2A. And they were like, no, we need anarchy and everything else like that. And yeah, it was just disgusting. But Stark Stands United.
Really, though?
Yeah.
Honestly, that should be a legitimate question to be asked them. Do you really want anarchy and, in a shit hit the fan scenario to where there's no government, there's no, police organization? It's like survival of the fittest and you're on your own. You have no backup. Do you really want that? What are your chances of surviving that? How are you prepped? Are you capable of defending yourself from looters and marauders? And do you really want all this? If you stop and think about it, I don't think you want it. I think you just want to be a whiny little bitch throwing a temper tantrum because you're not getting what you want. Am I right?
Yeah. Well, the thing going back to that too is, so there was an offshoot of Ohio Stands United called Stark Stands United, which is my home county here. And we distanced ourselves very hard from OSU at that point because we're like, yeah, we want nothing to do with these people. They are clearly not, for our rights and stuff like that. And we may have a similar name, but we are not part of them, is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's basically when we started doing our thing. And that was, I had gone to the second meeting with that group because I didn't know the first one even existed. And that was literally right before, I think that was January 2020. So that was right before lockdowns happened. And then everything went to shit after that. So,
yeah.
But during that time period, though, we ended up getting over a third of the counties in Ohio to become become two-way sanctuaries through the county commissioners and stuff like that.
That's awesome. I got a question on that whole constitutional carry thing.
Uh-huh.
To me, pretty much since Arizona went constitutional carry, there were, a couple after that, but, it just seems like here recently there's been a surge of states, passing constitutional carry. In the past several years, how many have gone constitutional carry so
There's
far.
been a lot. I'm trying to, I can't remember the exact correlation of it. You would have to find like a map or something that actually shows. I know there's a map out there that actually shows it from like 2004 or 5 onwards, and it shows how quickly a lot of them spread.
I know in the last few years there have been at least 10 or more that one after another.
Well, I know that Texas was the 21st in 2021, which I'm surprised Abbott isn't running on that for re-election.
Right.
Or anybody else for that matter be like, yeah, we help make Texas 21 and 21, baby.
Because I was so fucking happy too. I wish it could have gone into effect immediately, but they didn't have the enough votes for that to happen. So we had to wait.
Yeah.
It was like a couple months.
So with this year, Ohio, Indiana, Georgia, Alabama signed, but it's not going to go into effect until next year. And then I'm trying to think, I feel like there's one more that I'm forgetting now. Nebraska had a chance this year, but they had too much stuff on their docket, and the governor there refused to do a special session after the fact. Louisiana should have actually been technically 22 and 21, but it was because you had a couple of rhinos that took a bunch of kickbacks and were like, no, we're gonna go ahead and just take this money for random bridge projects that we have on the side or something like that, and go ahead and vote against us, even though we voted for this the whole time, is what it was.
And it's like Florida. I don't understand why they don't already have it, because you got fucking Ron DeSantis as governor, and he seems like he's got a good head on his shoulders, and there's so many people that want him to run for presidency.
I don't know if you heard about the DeSantis thing the other day or not. He apparently was doing an event at, I forget where it was at, doing like a campaign stop or something like that, and he specifically said, this is going to be a gun-free zone today. There was some dude outside the venue who, as far as I'm aware, was not armed at the time. He was just holding up a sign that was like, this is bullshit, like, because he was one of the Florida carry guys is what it was. And he was like, yeah, this is bullshit. Like, why can't we have, the right to keep and bear arms here, dude? Like, you're supposed to be like some constitutionalist governor, supposedly. Like, what's up, bro? He was arrested for First Amendment auditing, basically.
That surprised me.
Yeah.
That's like, I know there's a guy, because I know in Florida, the only way you can open carry is if you're actively, going to or coming from like fishing, hunting, or camping.
Mm-hmm.
And even people, because I've seen a couple of videos of a guy that is out of Florida that he does that, and he's been arrested. He's been fucked with hardcore just for exercising his rights on that aspect. So it just blows my mind that DeSantis isn't hardcore pushing for it and getting it done already.
Well, I think a lot of people forget that he was actually one of the big governors that shut down their states during 2020 and then reversed course after the fact.
Yeah.
Because as far as I'm aware, it was only Kristi Noem in South Dakota that actually never shuttered.
Mm-hmm. So is he pushing for constitutional carry now?
I feel like he has said stuff in the past like 6 months or so about it, because there was a reason there he did a special, because I know for a fact when they did their special session earlier this year, because the way that Florida is, and this is what I think is weird about all general assemblies, why we don't have like kind of like a format across the board where it's like, no, you're in office throughout the entire year, just take breaks whenever you need to, kind of thing, for holidays and stuff like that. That's how Ohio works anyway. But yeah, with Florida, it's like, I think they have like 60 or 90 days or something like that, in like the first half of the year for like 1 year, and then it's like the next year it's like the second half of the year or something.
Mm-hmm.
And unless they do like special sessions, it's only going to be that like 60 or 90 days and stuff like that. Similar to Nebraska actually in that aspect, because that's how Nebraska didn't get constitutional carry this year, because they only had like, I think 60 or 90 days, and with all the pandemic stuff, they had like 57 bills they were trying to throw through there. And they're like, well, we're trying to get constitutional carry here done too, but it's like, we have like a limited amount of time to do this stuff, and it's unfortunate that happened to be one of the ones that didn't get on the ballot. It was what it was to actually go towards the governor's desk then.
Yeah. Krabby said that he's heard that DeSantis says he'll sign it if it came across his desk. Well, Abbott here in Texas did the same thing for a long time, but in my opinion, wasn't actively advocating for constitutional carry. It was the people bringing the bill forward that was pushing it, and it ultimately got it pushed through with the help of the citizens here in Texas. and you had moms demand action, and you had local police and everything fighting against it. Because I followed that whole case from start to finish, and it was exhausting.
Well, it's like
And
the same thing.
I don't see DeSantis really pushing for constitutional carry. He may say that he'll sign it when it hits his desk, but to me, actions speak louder than words.
Well, that was the one big thing with Brian Kemp in Georgia. Was I think he knew he's up for re-election. He's like, how can I actually win this race? Let me go ahead and advocate for constitutional carry and stuff like that. And then it was when he was actually about to be primaried by that David Perdue guy that he's like, no, I'm super pro 2A. Put this on my desk now. And then he did the signing ceremony. And his actually was legitimately for Georgia to go into effect immediately then. And that's the only reason they beat Ohio, because the way that Ohio's was, there's a way actually here in Ohio where a governor, if they have it done correctly in the General Assembly, they can just sign it into place and it'll affect immediately is what it is. It's like appropriation stuff or something like that. So where it's like, okay, put $10 on this for like some random thing or whatever the case be, and then it becomes effective immediately. They didn't do that though. They just waited the 90 days is what it was. And then it was, I think, within like a week or two of that happening is when you had Kemp signed in Georgia then and become 22 and 22. So,
and 500 Magnum brought up a good point. California, New York, it's going to be almost impossible, unfortunately, for constitutional carry. I agree. There are certain states like that will fight it tooth and nail and probably never do it, unless if we had an actual real president take office and fight for our rights and freedoms in the Constitution and actually sign it into law to where all 50 states are constitutional carry. That's the only way California, New York, and other states that are just so adamantly against 2A.
Yeah, there's a few that have to be taken kicking and screaming all the way there is what it would be.
And they'll still try to find ways to skirt around it, like with the whole Bruin decision. California, especially New York, they are doing everything they can to skirt around the Bruin decision to keep their states, arbitrary laws and quote unquote bullshit on their side.
Yeah. Speaking of New York, did you happen to catch any of the debate between Hunkel and Lee Zeldin?
No.
Man, I'll tell you what. That woman is something else. She went on this whole tirade against Lee about, oh yeah, this is why New York is so safe. And he's like, oh, is that why people are getting stabbed all the time and everything else like that around here?
Right.
And,
or how about all the people that are getting beaten in the streets or pushed in front of fucking rail cars or pushed on the tracks and shit? Oh yeah, New York's really fucking safe. All the violence that happens in the on the trains and everything you constantly hear about. I mean, yeah, okay. Yeah, New York's safe. Bullshit. Yeah, Massachusetts, Maryland, Hawaii. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be New Jersey would be another one of them too as well, because it's like the 7 circles of hell is what they're called, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that.
And Michigan.
Michigan is one of those ones right now where I think, truthfully, because the way that their General Assembly is right now, it's getting similar to what Ohio's was like 14 years ago, to where it was like almost majority, and then since then we've become a supermajority here. And even during the debate with Whitmer and Tudor Dixon the other day, Gretchen admitted straight up, she's like, yeah, the General Assembly is like not what I want it to be, basically. And it was going like harder red and stuff like that. And I can see it even going harder red in this election cycle. And if they would have Tudor actually win that governorship, I could see her legitimately signing in Michigan. Because right now, that's the ones I'm looking at personally for here in 2023 would be, we got potentially for constitutional carry in 2023. If DeSantis wants to do something, he could have Florida be a constitutional carry state, hopefully, or at least have it be reintroduced in their General Assembly then. You have Nebraska that's probably going to get finally in 2023. Pennsylvania, with a new governor, potentially could get it because they were one of the ones that should have got it this year, actually. But then again, it was that asshole Tom Wolf vetoed it, and they didn't have the override for the veto, is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Which brings me back to something I've talked about when it comes to Ohio, Michigan, and a few other states. We really should, as a bunch of people right now, be fighting for a one county, one rep kind of state houses, because there are way more state reps in both states than there are counties in our states, especially in Pennsylvania. There's like, I think 70 something counties there, and they have like almost 210 state reps in there. And it's because of population density in places like Philadelphia and Pittsburgh and stuff. But yeah, so that's a thing. And I could easily see Doug Mastriano winning that governorship and almost signing in immediately, pretty much. So you have Pennsylvania, Nebraska, Florida, Wisconsin was one this year that it got certain steps towards it, but it never got into place. And I think if they flip that governorship, that could easily be put into place now, because Tony Evers is done, I believe, as governor in that state, especially after Kenosha and everything else like that there.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Kenosha, Waukesha, however you say it.
Yeah. Waukesha.
Waukesha, yeah, whatever, however you want to say it.
No, it's pronounced Waukesha. Waukesha.
When did you say Alabama's supposed to go into effect?
That'll technically be the first one of 2023, because it'll be January 1st is when it goes into effect then.
Okay. I thought so. So. Is there any other states right now that are in line of having it go through? Or is it just all talk now?
It would have to be resubmitted in every General Assembly other than Alabama to them to have it be in the like, technically, because it would be Alabama would be the first to go into effect in 2023, but you would have a different state be the first of 2023 to enact constitutional carry.
Right. I was just curious if there's another state that is about to pass it, or
Nebraska was the closest this past year here, and the only reason it didn't get done this year is because their General Assembly didn't have special sessions and stuff like that.
Mm.
So that I think would be I think Nebraska will be the first to fall in 2023, legitimately. Then you got Pennsylvania, because they're going to have a new governor no matter what. Hopefully it'll be Doug Mastriano. I don't know, but he's already basically said as much that he would sign into place if it got, like he'd basically be championing for it all the way through their General Assembly is what it would be. And then, so those two, I think, would be. I think Pennsylvania is like depending on governor. Nebraska, I think, is almost a given, and then Florida is another one of those ones. It's like very whatchamacallit. I think it's just because there's General Assembly as well in that one, especially after you have that one state senator or congressman or whatever he was there had his aide toss all the petition stuff in the trash, and it happened in the last 6 months or so, 8 months or so, someplace in there. There's video of that from, I want to say it was Guns and Gadgets channel. So they would need to take a couple different state reps and state senators and have them flipped out through different primaries and stuff like that, hopefully, and whatnot. And then, so you got Florida potentiality. Louisiana, I think, is a potentiality. Although I think they may have to wait until after this upcoming governor's race in 2023 to actually have it be because John Bel Edwards will never sign off on it, and they don't have the veto override for his vetoes.
Yeah.
North Carolina, if I can't remember that guy's name is offhand, lieutenant governor there, if he would just impeach Roy Cooper already, he could get it done in North Carolina as governor then.
And in North Carolina, went constitutional carry. I'm sure South Carolina would be right behind them.
South Carolina, I think, did some similar shit to Indiana, where they gave like lifetime permitting or something to people. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly why Indiana got fucked for so long, because they were like, oh, but we're giving you your rights. You just have free licensing here. It's just everybody out of state doesn't have the ability to carry here anymore unless they have a license. And then eventually Indiana fell this year is what it was then. They were 24 behind Ohio is what it was. And of course, because of that is why you had Eli Dickin was able to defend himself and everybody else there at that mall and take out that active shooter.
Excuse me. Sorry about that.
Because he did not have a license at that time, and he specifically stated, if it was not for constitutional carry, I wouldn't have been armed that day.
Yeah, the guy that took that gnarly fucking shot with the handgun, and yeah, dude, that mad respect to him, man. That was a hell of a shot. Wasn't it like 40 yards away?
I think he was like 25 to 30 yards away, something like that. Yeah.
Well, anyways,
He
that
braced
may not
himself on
sound
some
like a
kind of a
lot.
pillar thing there. Well, he took their, I believe was what it was. He took the initial shot from that, like bracing himself against the pillar. He popped off like a couple rounds real quick, and then
Yeah.
he started running towards the gunman and continued to fire as he was running.
Yeah, but still, I mean that's mad respect to him, because under those conditions, in an active shooter situation, being shot at, and you still can accurately fucking from any kind of distance, unless it's besides up close, effectively take someone down. That's something to be said right there.
Yeah, and I believe he took it was either 10 or 11 shots on that dude, and it was like 6 or 7 hit target, I believe is what it was.
500 said Vermont is a great place for 2A activists. Well, yeah, Vermont, they've never had any.
That if we go back to the history of constitutional carry, it used to be called Vermont carry because they were, I think, the first or second one to put it in place.
Yeah,
And
Vermont's
back in
always
the
had a.
90s, when Ohio submitted ours for the first time, it was known as Vermont carry back then.
Yep.
And then I know at some point, I think it was Montana and Wyoming both became constitutional carry states, but they really don't have a whole lot of people in them anyway, so it's not really like a big issue either way, unless it's like a major city there.
So, a hypothetical question. This even goes to the people out in the chat. How fast do you think crime would slow down if constitutional carry was passed nationwide, which means every state has no choice but to allow constitutional carry? And how fast would you see crime start changing for the better in places like New York, California, Chicago, Detroit? Would that be because right now the whole gun free zone bullshit is just a neon sign flashing, say, I'm a victim, victimize me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you're not going to see crime like that where people that the criminals know that people have guns and will stand their ground. So I'm just curious to see how quick that would change.
I mean, it depends. Like it's hard to say honestly, because the thing is, even in states that have constitutional carry, like there's a lot of people in Ohio right now that don't even realize we've been a constitutional carry state for over 4 months right now,
Oh yeah.
and because of that, you have people still not carrying, and you still have violent encounters and stuff like that going on.
Well, that's
So
like even here in Texas. We've been constitutional carry for a year now,
mm-hmm.
and I carry every day.
Mm-hmm.
And 98% of the time I open carry. And I usually see maybe one or two people open carrying in a week's time. It's still, I guess, new to them and they're hesitant. I don't know. I figured it would have been much quicker because, Texas, we're such a big 2A, gun toting loving, freedom loving Americans. I'm just so surprised I don't see more and more of it every day.
Yeah, I think the issue becomes again as well. It's a situation where there's been so many people that have seen videos of like people open carrying and they're like, oh, well, that's going to be the first target kind of thing. And I think there's a lot more people that will constitutionally carry over open carry.
That, and just like any other place that has run it to be passed, oh, if this passes, there's going to be blood running in the streets, blah 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 blah. And I think I'm assuming, I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming most people in these constitutional carry states, whether it's Texas or Ohio or wherever, they're probably buying their time to see how it's evolving and being laid out, whether crime is really going to spike because of it or crime's going to decrease. And you see what I'm saying? I think people are just observing right now instead of advocating, which I believe they should advocate, because if you don't, that's how we get our rights taken away. If you don't exercise your rights, they're like muscles, they just go away.
Yeah, for sure. And then, of course, it's also a situation, too, where I think there are so many people who they believe they're safe until they realize they're not safe. And I think that's what happened with 2020. You had a lot of people be like, oh, we're not going to protect you. And then it became a whole thing of, oh, okay, well, I guess we're on our own now kind of thing. And that's when you had so many gun spike ups happen. And actually, it was within I believe it was 3 or 4 months after the riots, you had a lot of people that were first time gun buyers actually return their stuff to the store and try to get a refund for it.
I remember that, yeah.
Now, granted, was there a lot of used guns on sale? Not really. Like, they were pretty much the same price still. They were just used guns now, even though they'd never been fired or anything else like that, so.
Yeah, which is stupid. Technically, once you buy a gun, whether you shoot it or not, once it leaves the store, it becomes used. Yeah. At least that's my experience, because every time I've like, there's one time I bought a gun and I told them I never used it and I wanted to sell it because I wanted to get something different, and they were only going to give me X amount of money because they said it's used, whether it's been fired or not, it's still used once you take possession of it.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed here locally is a lot of places, they tend to sell used guns for more than new guns, which I think is kind of crazy. Now, granted, some are on commission, or some are on what do you call it, commission or whatever. But like, I understand that. But like, there's a lot that really aren't, and it's like they could easily do, knock a little bit off the price tag or whatever. So, I don't know.
In my opinion, say you buy a Glock and it's new, say 500 beans. Same Glock, you bought 500 beans, you sell it, and then that person tries to sell it. It should not cost $500, $600, $700 used. It should be, in my opinion, used guns should be around $250 to $300 less than listed price, because it is used. And it also depends on the gun itself, what type it is. But yes, there should be a considerable difference between price, whether it's new or used.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and 500, you're right. Anyone that will give a little liberty for a little security deserves neither, and will lose both.
Yep.
That's 100% accurate.
Actually, I think that's a good place to end this episode on, because it is getting a little bit late, and it's getting close to dinner for me as well. But yeah, we'll do a little bit of talk in the back chat for a few minutes, and then I'm gonna head out. So,
okay.
But other than that, I'm gonna call it on this one. Anybody that wants to jump into the back chat, I'm gonna throw the link out there one more time for everybody. It's also in the description of the video. And like I said, we'll be here for probably like 10 minutes or so. But other than that, that's where we're at for today. Hope y'all enjoy this episode, and I'll see y'all on the next one.
Later, y'all.